Chapter 4. Welcome to my dysfunctional family. When mom was around 15 years old, in 8th grade, I think in the Soviet Union they start school at around 7 years old. My grandmother, since she was a coach of athletic department and knowing that mom needed exercise due to her condition, thought that putting mom in a swimming pool would be beneficial for her. With that said, Grandma had a co-worker who had asked my grandmother to plug her son, Andrei, for privileges to go to the pool as well. There, Andrei and Mom met. Andrei had a blonde hair and blue eyes and was a little bit plump. They fooled around, splashing, chasing, and playing water games, getting close to each other. Then, when 8th grade started, Mom was walking her path to school, passing by Andrei's building. She didn't know he lived there at the time, and she spotted him coincidentally. Andrei asked her which school she went to. Mom said that it was the 24th school, and Andrei said that that was the school as well. He was in 10th grade. Eventually, Andrei gave a lot of attention to Mom, and she liked it. She started dressing fancy and attractively to shine for him. Every time she walked her way to school, she met with Andrei, and he gave her a kiss in front of her girl classmates, who dropped their backpacks out of jealousy and dismay. Mom was swimming in the clouds. They dated that way for a year and got closer emotionally. During Mom's 9th grade, she was skipping classes to hang out with Andrei, who by then finished school, in his house. During the Soviet Union era, there were only 10 classes. When Mom was around 16, Andrei's feelings started to cool off. He began to be insolent and hurtful towards Mother, and he dumped her for a girl named Sasha. Mom was hurt inside out. He was her first love. At times, Mom would stand at his window and sob wistfully, trying to understand what she did wrong, where she was at fault, but unfortunately she couldn't understand. Afterwards, she heard that Andrei went into the army, and she tried to forget him and move on. After Mom graduated from high school, she went on vacation to a place called Theodosia, Crimea, which at the time was a part of the Soviet Union and Ukraine. It is on the Black Sea coast where, by the way, Grandpa told her Andrei used to vacation. Grandpa and Mom wedged a tent next to another tent where a young fellow named Sasha and his parents were. He was also blonde and blue-eyed, and Mom connected to him. He was very affectionate, caring, and hardworking. Mom and Sasha went to exotic places together, like the botanical garden in Kiev, which Mom never had gone to. Mom also loved to go to the disco with him. They had a lot of fun together at the beginning. They finally married on April 24th, 1984, when Mom was around 18 years old. 2 weeks afterwards, Grandpa left Grandmother and with him left behind a 3-room apartment that was in the streets of Kiev next to a well-to-do street called Darnica for Grandmother and their kids to live in. My grandmother went insane, ballistic, delirious, absolutely out of her mind as a result of the separation. Usually when an emotional pain strikes Grandma, everyone gets to have that share. She restlessly and obsessively ruminated over and over, how could he, to the point that it was gnawing at her, and she put all that negative energy on the newlyweds. She set Mom against Sasha, since he had one weakness, in the sense that he wasn't very handy around the house. Sasha worked at my grandpa's firm as a driver, transporting certain mechanical gadgets. Grandma, however, would say he's a bomb, he's a freeloader, churning Mother's mind and manipulating her. At the same time, she would bother Sasha by saying, "Why are you standing there? Why are you sitting? Why are you eating?" At any moment, she would come into their room unannounced and without courtesy knocks. Instead of teaching them something useful around the house, she always criticized. For these reasons, Mom asked my great-grandma Sima, who at the time lived with her second husband on the second floor in the same building, to switch with Mom, for her to live with Grandma, and for them, Mom and Sasha, to move in the apartment where Sima, great-grandma, lived. Because they lived on the second floor and Mom on the fifth, great-grandma Sima refused to accommodate. She was elderly and the building was without elevators. Unfortunately, Mom and Sasha were not making enough money to survive on their own. Therefore, they had to tolerate all of grandmother's ways. At the same time, while being married to Sasha, Mom worked as an accountant at the institution where Grandma coached. Mom, for work purposes, went to a department where there was a lady who was a co-worker of Andrei's mom. She struck up a friendly conversation and recognized my mom from talking to her co-worker about Mom and Andrei hanging out. She was aware of the fact that Mom was dumped by him. She asked Mother, "Are you Lena, Kira's daughter?" "Yes, I am," Mom sheepishly replied. "Are you still hurting from your breakup?" she asked gently. "Yes," Mom replied truthfully and tearfully. Mom loved Andrei more than ever, but Sasha she didn't. Over time, Mother's relationship with Sasha simmered due to grandmother's interruptions and over-involvement in her life, on top of other factors. She grew bored with him after having too much fun of the same kind, and she felt that he was like a walking blind kitten, although he was very gentle and faithful to her. Mother recognized that her feelings towards Andrei were still fresh. The lady affectionately brushed her hand through Mother's bouncy curls and said, "It's not your fault for the breakup. You didn't do anything wrong. Andrei's mother doesn't like Jewish people." Then everything was understood as if a comet landed on the ground with a boom. Everything came into perspective. Andrei returned from the army and he reconnected with Mom. He could, and promised her a wonderland and a faithful marriage. Mom began dating him again while being married to Sasha, but eventually she felt the need to tell Sasha the truth. Sasha said in return, "In this case, I don't think I can hold you up. Go wherever your heart belongs, and let's have a divorce." Around 1988, Mom divorced Sasha and continued to date Andrei. One day, Mom knocked on Andrei's door unannounced. Andrei opened the door shirtless and in boxers during the late afternoon, and he said to her in an upset tone that she shouldn't have come unannounced. Mom understood that he was with another girl and said, "To hell with you. Don't you ever call me again." And she left. Since then, she has never seen him again. At the same time, she feels a deep regret for hurting Sasha and leaving him for such garbage. After overcoming that experience, Mom hooked up with a classmate who introduced her to a guy named Zhenya and nicknamed Jack. He was a happy fellow. His eyes were brown and he had light brown hair. He loved to draw with Mom and he was very educated. They also did crossword puzzles and sent paper boats into the ocean, and he dreamed of being an architect. Mom moved in with him and they were going to get married. While everything was going as planned, one day Mom was called by her sister Anna to babysit her little nephew, 5-year-old Maxim. After that, she went back to Jack's house and she spotted some Natasha lady with him. They were not kissing necessarily, but just her presence made Mom act impulsively, not giving Jack a chance to explain himself. Due to her previous experiences, she unavoidably got jealous and hurt again. Without further ado, she ambled home with tears to grandmother and told her everything. Grandma encouraged Mom by saying, "Why you need this goy, Gentile, for? We will find you a nice Jewish man." With all the men that she had been with and slept with so far, Andrei, Sasha, and Jack, she had never been impregnated. As was promised, though, grandmother knew a lady named Sonia, who was also Jewish and whose occupation was to make shidduch, matchmaking, among Jewish people. Grandma paid money for it for Mom and was suggested my father, Leonid. She said that he was a golden man, very rich, and a krasnodelievchik, which literally means red wooden, which means carpenter. But he was a lot older than Mom, by 9 years to be exact. In November of 1989, Mom started dating Dad. Although Mom thought that he was boring, she hoped that he would not cheat. Since there was a lot of adultery in my mother's life, starting from her own father, she was consumed with fear and disappointment. But with Dad, she had a light of hope. Furthermore, although she didn't like the type of music that he listened to, she liked the fact that they both were fond of Jewish music, like Tumbalalaika, which is a folk Yiddish song. It got on her nerves, though, the way he danced, but she thought he had a good voice. She loved that he was social and had guests often. Despite her overall dislike of him, she forced herself to go on dates with him, telling herself that the most important thing was not love, but creating stability. On the fourth day, Mom had intercourse with him for the first time, and he was nothing like her other men. Although relatively boring in character, he was a really good lover in bed, which impressed her. By being with him, she hoped that she could leave Grandma and live a normal, peaceful, married Jewish life. She agreed to marry him for 3 reasons: because he was Jewish, because he right away said that he wanted to leave Ukraine, which Mother was sick of, and because she believed that his profession would be in great demand wherever he were to move. Nonetheless, one thing that Dad told me is that during his dates with Mom, he noticed that Mom walked awkwardly, so he asked her the reason for it. Mom said that she went through a physical trauma when she was young while hanging out with my great-grandmother and her other husband in a sort of contemporary yacht. Mom fell off of it, which hurt her legs. It, of course, was a lie. Then, however, he later on found out that it was a genetic condition after he married Mom. He said that had he known that before, he would have never agreed to marry her. He found out about it only after I was born. Also, sometimes he tells me that had Mother not maintained her figure, he wouldn't have ever married her either. Mom started gaining weight later, but when they met, she was in shape. Regardless of these blind restrictions, in February 1990, my parents got married, and at some point in that period, Dad moved to live in Grandma's and Mom's house. During their wedding day, Anna's husband, Alyosha, made a weird toast, saying, "You don't know what you have gone into." Dad couldn't understand what he meant by that. When reminiscing about their reasons for getting married, Mom complains that Dad didn't tell her before they got married that he had a son from another relationship. What is interesting about it is that the woman that Dad had a son with just wanted my dad's sperm. The lady forced him to promise not to be in contact with her child. The specific circumstances about it remains a mystery. Dad doesn't divulge many details in that respect. On top of that, he lied that he was rich. Dad complains that Mom didn't tell him that she had a genetic disease. Everybody had their own issues. Around March 8th of 1990, International Women's Day, Mom believes that I was conceived. After 8 weeks into the pregnancy, Mom found out about it and she really got scared. All this time, she believed she was infertile. I was an unplanned baby, and Mom felt that it was quite an inconvenience since they were planning to immigrate, which she further believed would be difficult to do with a child in her arms. On top of that, Mom wasn't very sure about following through with the pregnancy, but Grandmother insisted that she should, explaining that someone after Grandma's death needed to take care of Mom when she got old. Mom decided that she needed to go for a consultation with the frame of mind that if they said that she shouldn't give birth due to certain risks, she would not follow through with it. When she came to the consultation, the lady advised not to give birth. She believed that it would worsen the condition for Charles-Marie. By then, mother felt differently about the pregnancy. She thought that the lady was unwise with her advice, and in response she became upset and cried. She was hurt that the lady said that mom needed to be in treatment instead of giving birth, which felt very condescending. Upon further examination of the embryo, mom was told that it was healthy, which encouraged her even more to become a mother. Before making a final decision, though, mom wanted to consult Dr. Gaston Garpatovich, and he cherishingly explained, "Feel free to give birth, girl. It will renew your internal system," which actually was true, she reminisced. After continual inquiries, it was explained that while there was no risk of dying, neither for her nor the baby, there was a major risk that mom's neurological system would be damaged and she wouldn't be and she wouldn't be able to walk after birth. Therefore, the doctors explained that the younger mom was, the better were the chances of a smooth birth. Mom didn't feel like she wanted to abort her first pregnancy, so after checking all of the possible avenues and deliberating, along with Grandma pushing towards following through with it, Mom officially embraced the decision to give birth. Throughout the pregnancy, Mom religiously checked up with a gynecologist named Svetlana Gesunina, upon urgent recommendation to watch the development of the pregnancy to make sure that it went well. Mom treated it with a lot of responsibility, and the pregnancy went smoothly. She was held under a strict diet so that the newborn would come out as small as healthfully was possible, so that it would be easier to deliver the baby. In the 16th week of pregnancy, the doctors determined my gender to be a girl. After Grandma found out that I was a girl, she insisted that I should be called Irina, inheriting the first letter of my great-grandpa, Israel. Mom personally didn't want to call me that because she had classmates and acquaintances that had teased her with that name. Despite the fact that Mom was told I would be a girl, Mom's heart was getting ready for a boy, and she was picking boy names. In return, she told Grandma that if she wanted to call a baby Ira, she should have her own. A week before the planned birth, Mom was advised to go to the hospital to prepare for it. Furthermore, Mom was strongly discouraged from having a cesarean for fear that it would later paralyze her limbs and affect her neurological system to the point that she wouldn't be able to walk. Therefore, they insisted on a natural birth. Mom went to a very specialized and expensive hospital to give birth, anticipating complications during the process. During this time of preparation, before she had contractions and severe nausea, she was on the first floor, where visitors were allowed to still come. On Thursday, December 6, 1990, at around 4 p.m., Dad came to her. Instead of giving apples and fruits, everything that a pregnant woman craves, Dad gave Mom a Hebrew textbook, saying, "Don't lose time in vain." Mom didn't even open the textbook because she was slightly busy doing something else. With that said, in 2 hours after Dad's coming, while being in the regular inpatient room on the first floor, Mom was having severe contractions. Her stomach was tearing her apart, and she was experiencing lightheadedness. She was told that, despite the pain she was experiencing, she was not ready to give birth. Therefore, they gave her medications to speed up the process. After some time, while Mom felt that she was giving birth already, the nurse on staff said that she was not ready based on what she checked. As the nurse was calmly stirring a cup of tea with sugar, Mom said, "If I'm not giving birth, then I'm pooping involuntarily." On Mom's insistence, the nurse carefully put her cup of tea with the spoon away, checked Mom, and screamed, "Oh, you really are in labor! Quick, run to the delivery room!" The delivery room was on a different floor. Mom couldn't quite run to the delivery room, let alone even walk. In the Soviet Union, for some twisted reason, when a mother was in labor, they had to walk to the delivery room from the inpatient room. Now, in the normal era of today, this option would not even come into anybody's mind in modern countries. They would wheel the mother on a bed into the delivery room, which makes a lot more sense. With a lot of pain and effort, Mom finally got to the delivery room and she saw a comfortable gynecologist which she attempted to sit. The nurse screamed, "Don't sit on the head!" Mom was confused as to which head she was talking about. And Mom thought that she was an utter idiot for a nurse and that she was surrounded by a hospital full of idiots. Although confused, Mom did as instructed and put a little more effort into getting to the delivery bed. Before Mom could say ah or oh, I came out with a shrill scream, and it was pronounced to be a girl. At this point, Mom didn't care which gender I was as long as I was something. Mom only heard me scream and saw how they bundled me with blankets, and out of concern she asked, "Calm her down, please." The doctors explained to her that it was a good sign that I was screaming. When an infant screams after birth, their lungs are cleared of placental fluid and they are able to draw their first earthly breath. After being satisfied with the answer, Mom was knocked out. Mom woke up in a wheeled bed, ironically, in the corridor of the hospital. Despite the fact that I tore all of her entrails, Mom felt well. She was told that her entrails would heal by themselves, but they gave her a shot against infection every 3 hours. Mom stayed there for a week after birth. While being in that bed, a doctor of medical science approached her and said, "Everything went well. The baby is healthy." She displays living reflexes, along with reflexes on the knees. Mom asked, "Does her nose look normal?" out of fear that I inherited Dad's big nose. "The nose is just fine," the doctor replied in amusement at Mom's awkward inquiry. Mom was lucky, though, that I was born extremely small, which was why the birth process went with relative ease. But that is not to say that I was premature. It was intended for me to be born so small. I weighed 2 kilograms and 450 grams, which is 5.40 pounds. I was smaller than the size of a chicken, Mom says. My length was 58 centimeters, which is about 23 inches long. Also, I was born with a very weird birthmark strategically placed behind my neck that looks like a scar, which makes me feel like Harry Potter sometimes. What was the reason for such a birthmark? I could only conjecture, since God does everything for an underlying reason of his own. On the tip of the right side of my head, I have a ridge-like mark as well, for purposes you will find out later. It's very useful at times. 2 days after the birth, when Mom was able to walk well, I was brought to her for nursing. However, the regulations of the hospital were such that no one could visit that unit where the mothers were delivering their babies unless they were patients themselves. None of my family members could have visited her. Instead, people could come to the window where their dear ones were staying, and they could show them the newborn and themselves through it. Although those were the regulations, they could deliver messages or packages from family, and someone festively brought Mom a bag of food with flowers and letters. Since Mom knew that Grandpa didn't like to write, she understood that the letters with what looked like Grandma's handwriting that were not signed belonged to Grandma, while the bag of food with the flowers was from Grandpa. She connected the dots right away that they were in the vicinity of each other, which was a catastrophe. For this reason, Mom wanted to immediately give Grandpa a call and tell him to stay in the car and not come out to the window to see Mom and my newborn self, because she suspected Grandma was there. However, she couldn't do that because the phone only accepted incoming calls and not outgoing ones. With eager anticipation, she really wanted him to call her, but maybe he couldn't or didn't know how. As she was thinking about all of the possibilities that could happen, she heard screams, yells, and belligerent curses outside the window. She went to the window and saw Grandma viciously hauling on Grandpa's hair, while his second wife, Masha, was beating on Grandma with her purse, because it was the first time Grandpa went to this particular hospital, which was extremely specialized. He couldn't orient himself to where exactly Mom was out of the 6th-floor building. Therefore, he took along his second wife, Masha, who had promised to show him the way since she was more familiar with the building as Masha's sister worked there. While just wanting the opportunity to wave his hand towards Mom and see the newborn, Grandma filled this experience with a nice triangle, so to speak, of mutual dancing and rejoicing over the birth of a new being, new beginnings of solidarity, unity, and support. As this amazing scene was happening, the ladies who were in Mother's room, along with nurses, came to the window to watch the concoction of events that almost seemed surreal, and they muttered to themselves, "It is unbelievable how many wives this man has." Mom, in return, thought how her family would have behaved themselves had this been her funeral. Thus, with these circumstances, on December 7th, on Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, at 6 in the morning of 1990, a sweet child came forth into this abundantly affectionate world.